and welcome back to Wounded on Sixes. Today we're going to be reviewing the recently released Death Guard Detachment that came out for GW's Grotmas Advent Calendar. Fortunately for us Death Guard players, it's a Death Guard detachment. So I just got done reading this over, so I'm giving you my raw takes here. I really haven't put many thoughts to it. I do kind of have some list ideas, but I'm kind of going to go over what was released, what I think about it, and where I think it may work in the Death Guard army. So first up, we have the detachment rule Verminous Haze. Death Guard infantry units from your army that are not embarked within a transport have Scout 5 and Stealth abilities. So, what does this mean for us? So, Death Guard has a lot of infantry. We have Terminators, we have Plague Marines, we have Poxwalkers, we have Cultists. There's a ton of infantry models to choose from, infantry models that we use all the time. Giving them Scout 5 and the stealth ability is pretty sweet because the biggest problem with Death Guard is that they're really, really slow, particularly their infantry that's not already in a Rhino. So giving them Scout 5, especially if you get to go first, means we can have some definite turn one charges from some Death Guard infantry up to and including Terminators, which I think is really exciting. So with a Scout 5, that means if a Terminator is moving, we now have 9 inches of movement on that turn one, especially if you get to go first. Also, you have the stealth ability, which gives all of our infantry a little bit more staying power. I think it's going to be useful against Terminators for sure. Making it harder for our enemies to hit them so that they have more of a chance to get in on enemy units is going to be really helpful. But I also think it's going to be good for units like Cultist or Poxwalkers that already don't have a lot of defense, whereas the Plague Marines and Terminators do. So it might be really helpful for them to get the stealth ability, as they're going to be able to stay alive a little bit longer by forcing our opponents to miss some shots. All in all, I think it's okay. I'm not overly impressed. The thing that kind of stinks is that for the most part, our Plague Marines are still going to want to be in the Rhino because they're just going to get more movement out of the Rhino. So the Scout 5 doesn't really do anything for them. I mean, once they get out of the Rhino, the stealth ability will certainly work. But I find a lot of times when I move my Rhinos up the field in a transport, the Plague Marines, when they get out, don't find themselves outside of combat very long. So I don't know how super great the stealth ability is. Right now, I am optimistic about this detachment rule, but it doesn't blow me away. Stealth is okay, but it's not really the best way to keep your models alive. The Scout 5 is great because it does help us to get faster, but if you go second, is the scout doing much for you? Are you trying to run out into the middle of the board 5 inches, get shot, hope stealth keeps your infantry alive, and then move forward? I don't know. I guess it depends on the matchup, but to me, unless I'm going first, I don't really want to run 5 inches forward with all of my army, even if they are -1 to hit. So I don't know. I think that's going to take some testing there, but it's okay. It is definitely okay. It definitely has. It helps make Death Guard a little bit more durable, which I definitely think they're missing from previous editions. And it helps to get them going a little bit faster, although I don't know how helpful it is for when you're going second. Moving on to the enhancements. First one, we have Droning Chorus of 15 points. Death Guard infantry model only. Range weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit have the assault ability. So that's pretty cool because it's for a Death Guard leader, but it affects the whole unit that it's a part of, which is always a great enhancement. Giving a unit assault is pretty good. This could be really good for something like Plague Marines, like being able to, get out of a Rhino, advance, and then shoot their weapons if you have a really shooty one. Something that can be really cool. It can also be super helpful on something like Blightlord Terminators, where, they You may be trying to get some of their firepower in, but you know you're not going to be able to make the charge. But being able to set them up for the next turn, giving them assault so they can advance, charge, and shoot. Again, this could be really good if you're going second for sure, but you can't take a huge advantage of that scout ability. This can kind of be a backup plan to give those Blight Lords assault so that you can advance and charge turn 1 and then move and charge turn 2. Insectile Mutilation, 20 points. Death Guard infantry model only. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes an attack that targets a unit that's within contagion range of one or more Death Guard units from your army, reroll a wound roll of 1. So, this is kind of like how plague weapons used to work, where you used to get to reroll wound rolls of 1. I think this would be especially good on a unit that is leading Death Shrouds for sure, because getting to reroll wound rolls of 1 on their flamers will be super helpful. But this could also be good on anything really, because it is not necessarily just ranged attacks. It's all attacks. So that can be within combat or not. So that really opens this up, giving any unit rerolls of 1. But this is especially good in a Terminator unit, whether it be for Blight Lords or Death Shroud. For Blight Lords, it'd be good if you were running already a Chaos Lord and Terminator armor. You get the reroll hit rolls of 1. This would give you reroll wound rolls to 1, which would be pretty good, if you ask me. For Death Guard units. Although, if they're close, I believe that the Blight Lords already give you reroll hits to ranged weapons, but this could also give you hit rerolls in combat and wound rerolls in combat and shooting. So pretty good there. Could be decent for something like Cultist as well, that do have some shooting in there. Not a lot though. I don't really use Cultists a lot, so I'm not super up on them. I know they're pretty popular with a lot of other Death Guard players, though. Rejuvenating Swarm, Death Guard infantry model. Only at the end of each phase, the bearer regains all of its wounds. So, while this sounds really good, I guess it's really best if you are in a meta with a lot of precision, where people are targeting your characters. Otherwise, it might take a long time for this to actually come into effect, because if your unit has a bodyguard unit, which most Death Guard units do, regaining lost wounds isn't really going to affect you unless you've been hit by precision. So I can see why this one's only 10 points. Probably my least favorite on the list here. Probably that's why it's the cheapest. Plague Evil, Death Infantry model only. While the bearer's unit is within range of 1 or more objective markers that you control, it cannot be selected as the target of attacks unless it's within 18. So basically, the new restricted lone op for a unit. This could be really good for like a unit of Blight Lords that are on your natural expansion, just holding it down with a character. Making it so that your units have to come up and touch them will make them way more effective at just sitting there. Adding an extra 25 points to an already bloated objective holding unit might not be the best, but I can definitely see some uses for this, because, being able to turn off shooting, especially a Death Guard, is really good. And then if they can shoot at us, we're still, -1 to hit with the stealth. So that's really not that bad. I don't mind Plague Evil here at all. Moving on to the stratagems, not the biggest fan of some of these. This one being the most nauseating Proximus. At the start of the fight phase, 1 Death Guard infantry unit from your army that's in engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Select 1 enemy unit with an engagement range. That unit takes a battle shock test, subtracting 1 from the results. I'm never one for paying CP to force a battle shock test, even if it's -1 to the result. And I don't really see this as being super effective, maybe against Marines, but they already have such a high leadership. Like, I just don't see the point in paying a CP to force a battle shock test. It just doesn't make sense to me. Next, we have Vermin Cloud. This one is not bad. I kind of like this one a lot. In the fight phase, one Death Guard infantry unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time that model makes a pile-in or consolidation move, you can go up to 6 rather than 3. This is really good for an army that already moves really slow. It allows you to kind of get some extra movement in your pile in and consolidate phase, which is really good. What also is good is a lot of times because Death Guard are so slow, especially the Terminators, you will only sometimes be able to get part of your unit in to combat. This will make sure that the whole unit gets in and give you a lot more movement, and it's only 1 CP. I have the Swarm in your shooting phase, one Death Guard infantry unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase till the end of the phase. Ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit, excluding blast weapons, have the pistol ability. Very niche, if you ask me. Um, it's, I mean, yeah, I just don't see where this would be super effective. Pistols are already not great. It only affects Death Guard infantry. The blight or the Death Shrouds already have the pistol keyword, I believe, on their flamers. If they don't, this would be good for that because they used to have pistol on their flamers, so that could be certainly a use for them. I don't know if it's worth 1 CP. I guess if they're engaged with infantry, although what survives Death Shrouds long enough for that to be effective? I could see this could make Blight Lords better, just so that their weapons are not completely useless in shooting. But again, what kind of infantry is surviving um, shots? Oh, and are the weapons on the Blight Lords effective enough against monsters and vehicles to make it worth them making pistols? Maybe. Um, Very niche. I guess it's okay. It's not my favorite, but I could definitely see some use cases in it. More than I can see using the nauseating Proximus to do the battle shock test. Next, we have Droning Horror. One Death Guard in your shooting phase, one Death Guard infantry unit. Select to shoot until the end of the phase. Each time the model makes a ranged attack, we can reroll a hit roll of 1. If the attacks are within half range, reroll the hit roll instead. Pretty good. Again, this doesn't really help the Terminators very much. Blight Lords already get to reroll their hit rolls if they're um, targeting the closest enemy unit. I believe that's the case. Let's go check that out here real quick. Sorry for this. So make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn. Each time a model makes a ranged attack, if it targets the closest enemy unit, reroll a hit roll of 1. So that's okay if you ask me. For I guess cultist units might want this. Death Shroud certainly don't because they're auto wounding with their ranged weapons. Um, Poxwalkers don't have it. So, I mean, I guess this whole detachment just seems to be trying to make Blight Lords better, which is I enjoy Blight Lords. I have a lot of them, so and I have a Blight Lord list that I'm working on. So, this is okay. Getting to reroll the hit roll is really good. So, like, if they are Blight Lords, if they're the closest enemy unit, they're now getting to reroll the whole hit roll. That does make them better, but again, I kind of wish they would just update the Blight Lord data sheet rather than make us pay a CP to make them better. But it's okay. Eviscerating Onslaught. In your charge phase, just after a Death Guard infantry has made a charge, that unit can be selected as long as it is an engagement range of something that's not a monster or vehicle. You roll a d6 for each unit within engagement range of that unit, and the result Add one to the result. If it's a cultist, if it's not a cultist or poxwalker unit, so better for Terminators and Plague Marines than them. And for each 5+, the enemy unit suffers a mortal. So this is okay. I it it's especially for Plague Marines, it's really good if you have a unit of 10. Like, you could be rolling a lot of dice. This essentially is tank shock for Death Guard infantry, Plague Marines, Terminators, Death Shroud, even Poxwalkers. I mean, um, that's really, that could be really good. I mean, 20 Poxwalkers, 20 dice, 5 ups. You're definitely doing 6 mortal wounds on the charge there. Almost guaranteed. Uh, so that's really good. But even for like a 10-man Plague Marine squad, that's 10 dice. It's going to be hitting on 4s rather than 5s. And, that's a lot of mortals. I mean, this can make particularly Plague Marines and even large units of like Blight Lords very dangerous to enemy infantry because you're now doing tank shock to them essentially when you charge. So, um, I really like this one. I think this is probably this and the Vermin Cloud are the two best in this detachment for sure. But this one I think is my favorite because I already love tank shock, and being able to tank shock with my Death Guard infantry into other non-monster vehicle units is going to be a lot of fun and going to make those units way more potent, particularly on the charge, which I think is important for Death Guard because we're already good in combat. If we can get really good in like the charge phase and getting movement and getting extra buffs, that could make this detachment really worth running. And then finally, we have Mephitic Invigoration. This one makes absolutely zero sense to me. To me, this feels like it should be in a different detachment. I just don't understand. But it says in our opponent's unit phase, just after an enemy unit has been selected as the targets, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, forgive me, one Death Guard infantry unit from your army that's within 6 of a friendly Mephitic Blighthauler unit and that was selected as the target of the attack till the end of the phase each time the attack model is targeted. If the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than the toughness characteristic of the Death Guard infantry unit, subtract 1 from the wound roll. There's just so much that has to happen for this to go on. I just don't understand why this is here. Um, I mean, I like the Mephitic Blighthauler. It definitely has its uses, but it's not the best anti-tank piece in the Death Guard army. So how often are you going to be bringing it? Okay, so you have to bring the Mephitic Blighthauler. You have to have Death Guard infantry within 6 of that hauler. And then that infantry has to be attacked. And then if the toughness is higher than the wound characteristic, or the toughness is higher than you, or if the strength is higher than your toughness, then you get -1 to wound. Like, why can't it just be -1 to wound? Like, it's just so many hoops. Like, you have to be an infantry, you have to be 6 within a blight hall, the infantry has to be targeted, and the strength has to be higher than the toughness. It's just like, wow, like, don't do me any favors with this one, GW. Like, I just hate the kind of rules here that like so much has to go right for me to be like, oh, Mephitic invigoration. Like, it's just never going to happen. So don't really like this. So Vermin Cloud, Eviscerating Onslaught Knight, not bad. Droning Horror is probably my pick for number 3, and then Eye of the Swarm, and then these two bottoming out here, Nauseating Proximus and Mephitic Invigoration. So all in all, I think this is an okay detachment. I'm actually going to go to my shop today, and I guess I'm going to be playing Death Guard today. And I'm going to be trying this out with a Terminator heavy list. I may even change that list to add more Plague Marines just to see what I can do. Maybe it's just all Death Guard infantry. I don't know. We'll see. I like this. It's okay. It's not bad. We'll see where it can get us. Is this better than the extra, contagion abilities that we get with the Plague Company? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe this kind of wants to like very niche us into an infantry heavy build, whereas the Plague Company is a more all around detachment. So I don't know. This feels like it's trying to fix Death Guard infantry more than it's trying to like be its own detachment. So that kind of worries me a little bit. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with this. Free rules. You can't complain. So go ahead and let me know what you think about this, and come back for more Wounded on Sixes.